Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I cannot believe that we're here at the closing session for PF. I think that in itself deserves a round of applause. So my name is Awo Sayanto, and I'll be the moderator for this closing panel. I am a director with Faster Cures, and for those that are not familiar with Faster Cures, we focus on accelerating life-saving and life-enhancing treatments for those that need them. So with that said, really kind of engaging the patients and the patient community is really core to our work, and so being here with all of you has really been inspiring. And in this closing session, what we really want to do is just take some time to reflect on the expectations and goals that were established at the beginning of this forum, and really think about, we'll hear from our panel, our distinguished panelists here, their perspectives on, how those goals were kind of materialized for them and what they're also taking forward from the trends and themes that came up. But so let me ask you to introduce yourselves, starting with Randy.
Okay.
So yes, please go ahead.
I'm Randy Ruta, currently serving as the CEO of the National Health Council. I've been in that role for about 17 months. I have the privilege of following Mark Booten, who had led the National Health Council for many years so beautifully, and it's great to be here with all of you.
Good afternoon. My name is Anka Toma. I am the Executive Director of the European Patients Forum, which is the European umbrella organization representing patients with chronic conditions.
Good afternoon. My name is Robin Bent. I am the Director of Patient-Focused Drug Development at the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research at the US FDA.
And hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca Vermeulen, and I lead our Global Patient Network at Roche Pharma, and also a member of our PFMD board, and have the opportunity to co-create the patient experience and PEP data with Neil, my colleague out there. So
Great. Like I said, a really great diversity of perspectives represented here. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your reflections on the last few days. But before we proceed, I actually wanted to quickly recap some of the expectations that the panelists in the opening plenary established. And these are just kind of what I captured, so not really a comprehensive kind of recap. But first, we heard, I believe it was from Stuart, the need to take stock of what has happened over the last 2.5 years, really thinking about, operating in the hybrid environment, what has worked, what hasn't worked, and what we could move forward with. Also kind of similar to that, where do we go from here with PIOF and in trying to broaden our reach to additional audiences, different geographic areas, all while harnessing kind of the lessons from the pandemic as well. So I believe it was Amanda who talked about the need to also, the importance of moving from patient engagement as individual ad hoc touches to more structural engagement with the patient community as a sector. And that was echoed by a couple people, if I can actually remember. Related to that was also kind of extending patient engagement into other aspects of drug development and access, so the post-launch phase. That was a really great session on that as well. Mark actually emphasized, over the last 2 days, kind of looking at how we take patient engagement to the next level. So how do we really propel things to the next level? How do we truly embed patient engagement in the health ecosystem? And this was reiterated by Amanda with, creating the need to create a movement, go deeper, identify the actionable steps to move us forward. So these are, like I said, just a few of the, charge. Actually, I should mention the last important one, which was that we should not leave a stranger, we should meet someone, and we should identify, opportunities to work together. So I took that personally. But anyways, having kind of identified a few of these goals and reflecting on these goals and any others that you may have established for yourselves coming in, how do you think you're leaving the event versus how you arrived? How well do you think we did in addressing these expectations and goals and any that you established for yourselves? So I'll actually start with Rebecca. Let's switch things up a little bit. And feel free to chime in as we go along in your view.
I just have to share, I think my sentiment is probably similar to many of you. I have thoroughly engaged the level of engagement at this meeting. And I think what I have shown as we have reflected on what we hope to accomplish is that when we come together in a room and we roll up our sleeves, we can really make a difference in understanding and brainstorming ideas, what it is that we need to do as an organization to continue to make progress. And I think about some of the topics from this week, right? We talk about patient experience and fusing that, right, as a part of patient experience data. Look at how far we've come. Now there's frameworks, there's tools available that are helping us think about this. Important conversations around remuneration, digital space, right? How is it going to evolve? How do we make sure that patients are at the table when we think about health data and all of the important concepts related to that? And really important discussions around diversity, including all of us as people and humans who come together in this space so that we can make a difference. And so I've just been amazed. I mean, look at us. We're comfy and cozy on this couch together. It's that sense of connectedness that we bring that I just think is amazing. So thoroughly enjoyed our time.
Anyone else wants to chime in here?
I have been in my role for about 7 months this Friday. So I'm counting the days. And I came in quite agnostic. I didn't know exactly what to expect. I didn't have the background of PR from before. So as someone who's new to this environment, I came wondering, what is the fuss all about? But now I know what the fuss is about. And so I came agnostic, I leave a believer, and I really grasped the energy, the bubbling ideas, the energy between people in side conversations, in plenaries, in sessions. And I really get it because we are, in the end, or you guys are, and now I've been quoted, united by this sense of shared purpose, and it's being done in a way that is really connected, is really actionable, really truly inclusive. And I'm saying because I checked my numbers, and 40% or more of the participants here are patients, patient representatives, patient advocates, or representing patient organizations, and that is just astounding. Yeah. So that's why I'm a believer.
Right. And actually, that's a great point. I just wanted to quickly kind of, piggyback on that. The fact that this has truly been a representative audience, community of patients, different stakeholders, but of patients and patient community. Okay, Robin.
So thanks. I think when I came, I was a little bit anxious about 3 days of meetings. But I will say that, we talk a lot about the importance of having a diverse group at the table, patients, industry, regulators, and I think we all kind of agree with this kind of philosophically, but to actually see it in action, sitting around the tables, kind of talking about ideas, bouncing ideas off of each other, hearing ideas that maybe we wouldn't have come up with if we didn't have this diverse group of stakeholders, has really been really incredibly motivated. And I thank you, the organizers, for really putting it together in such a way that it really was more than just kind of talking the talk, right? I mean, it was really kind of walking the walk, and really everybody was not listening to lecture after lecture after lecture, but actually really actively engaged. I think it was very powerful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I would agree with my colleagues. I mean, it has been absolutely powerful, and I think, for me, you talk about, well, what's the measure of success? How will this interaction be different than when I'm back home and kind of caught up in my regular life? And I tell you, connecting with people face to face, many of who I met virtually, but that's quite different, having the opportunity to really talk about what's exciting to you, what's challenging to you, what can we do. Some of the working sessions, I'm looking forward to getting the results of those back so we can really build on the good work that was done here. So it won't be out of mind, in leaving this meeting. It'll actually be a first step in how to take back those ideas, those recommendations, the models. There's so much good work that's being done collectively across all of our organizations and together. And, I'm right now involved in kind of looking forward to 2023, so we're setting a vision and priorities and looking to operationalize those. There is conversation, there are ideas that come out of this conference that I can directly put in to those tools then that make sure that we will, as a National Health Council and its membership, be upfront, up center, a good partner in all of this work. So I'm really excited about that piece. Patient engagement is one of 4 pillars that the National Health Council has in our strategic plan. It's a multi-year plan. The work that we're doing here, and I think that I can take forward, is going to fill that out. And so it's not just words on paper, it's not just aspirational statements, it's actionable and it's meaningful to patients in their lives and in the various roles that we have. So this has been terrific. Measures of success, I guarantee it'll be impressive.
Absolutely. And I think you make a point that's very important, which is that PF was active, has always been active online in the virtual sphere, but being together in person kind of energizes, takes that activity and energy to a different level. And hopefully, the in-person connections that we've established will also kind of be reflected in whatever next steps that come. I want to delve a little further and really kind of probe for your key takeaways. Any key takeaways that you came out with? The sessions were good places to obviously, collaborate, co-create, but equally so, also they curated and, kind of informal networking sessions that we've had. So really thinking about all the different avenues we had to connect, were there any specific takeaways that really stuck with you? Well, we can start with you, Randy.
Okay, happy to. Well, it's been interesting, the level of alignment that I've seen coming into this meeting as you recap, that day one, that first plenary where kind of the stage was being set for how important this meeting is. And at every check-in afterwards, it's just incredible how aligned we are with why we do this work, how passionate people are, how important it is to have patients in this meeting to the extent that you described. This is exciting work, but the takeaway for me really mirrors what Tony shared this morning. He really identified for me what I have taken away so far in this meeting. And it's together we're strong and non-competitive. Nobody is as smart as all of us together. That we evolve from the movement to that impact that we're talking about. Individuals and system-wide, 2 different aspects of how we approach the concept of and then the importance of patient engagement. And then that the health system itself and just the world itself is facing challenges that absolutely affect how we take our goals forward. And so I think those takeaways that Tony shared this morning were really meaningful to me. And at this point in time, I think how we take that kind of sense of what's happening here and then address where we find ourselves in the world to advance patient engagement, as was said earlier, to the next level. How do we really affect an actionable, measurable, meaningful path that speaks to the individual patient experience? Is their life better for the work that we're doing and trying to foster? And then at the systems level, are we creating sustainable, meaningful change within systems so that we've moved from kind of an aspirational vision to something that's actionable and that we can actually see and move forward? So for me, the takeaways are that the table is well set for doing exactly that. And I can't think of a group collectively that could be more successful in achieving those goals.
Absolutely. Please, anyone chime in with your burning takeaways?
The table's all set. Who comes to the table? And I think this is the question that I'm left with in terms of what's next. And this is why. We have a group here that is really energized, and what we were talking about this morning is going from hundreds to thousands, right? And I think it matters who the thousands are going to be, because as we build patient engagement into systems, we need to build power for those driving patient engagement. So, I think maybe a measurable takeaway for the POF, say, in 5 years' time is how many ministers we have in the room, how many CEOs we have in the room. You see, I'm very ambitious. Because systems change is driven by power, so we need to build that into the functions, into the roles, into the work we do. Now, as patients, patients. I'm representing an organization. As an organization, we are here. We're ready to talk. We're ready to cooperate. Together, we absolutely are stronger. I come from Europe. People are worried here about the cost of living, the economic crisis, the inflation, the energy costs that are crippling hospitals and crippling supply chains. And as these challenges come, it's obvious that if patients are going to be better off, this can only be done together. So we're here, we're very committed, we're ready to come and help and participate and advise and input and help out. How do we build that power? This is what's next for me. How do we, build the tsunami?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great point. I mean, we've talked about who's in the room, but who's not in the room. Perhaps that's also a point of reflection for next steps.
Not yet.
Not yet in the room, yes.
No, who's not in the room is negative.
Okay.
I want to think about who's next.
Okay, who's next to come into, okay, who should we get in the room next? So that's the charge for PF. Okay, Robin.
So I think, there's a lot of takeaways. I think for me, the maybe one of the key takeaways is really, clinical research is global, clinical trials are global, and so seeing this kind of breadth of stakeholders. Obviously we're still kind of in the Europe, U.S. kind of area, but we're, it's becoming more global, and I think that's a good thing. I think that it's a really important step to kind of think about that.
Okay.
And I would just build some reflections, actually, it's off of a comment that you made, Anka, yesterday. We were at a working session, and you made a comment that it very much connects, Randy, to yours as well. You said, at the end of the day, this has to be about the greater good for society, right? And it was one of those moments where, as we're deep diving in details of, putting sticky notes and thinking about things, it really caused me to pause and think, yeah, we have to think about this as a system as a whole. And it makes, me realize, we all know driving change is hard. This is hard work, right? When you're trying to move and shift, it feels like we're moving a mountain sometimes. But together, when we can come and we can look at the system as a whole, right? So that's let's make sure we're looking up, right? And then identifying where there's opportunities. And we take that chance to come together and look down and go deep and brainstorm. How do we make a change here in this space? And then make sure that we're looking right and left as our partners, right? Working together on this to make sure whatever we're doing, is it having an impact? What do we need to do differently? How do we grow? So I just think for me, it's that important reflection of everybody coming together and how we drive change, and being reminded that we're one piece of a much bigger picture, right? And so that's essential for us.
Absolutely. And I think personally, being here to key takeaway for me is just how much work is actually happening. There's a lot of work happening, but oftentimes because it's siloed and on the ground, and everyone is kind of focused on their kind of immediate group or constituents, it's oftentimes we don't get the opportunity to look up and kind of consider what else is going on, what other resources exist, how not to duplicate work that's going on, how to learn from each other. So think that's a really great point. So now I just want to hear how you are going to move forward some of the themes and trends and some of the key takeaways that you mentioned. What practical, actionable steps can you immediately kind of envision, for your organization, for your stakeholder group, for yourself?
I'll jump in because this is the space that I get very excited about. What's next? Where do we go? And I couldn't feel more confident that the work that's been done to date, to your point, is impressive. It has laid the groundwork for our success then really becoming more visibly effective and built into the system in ways that will honor patients and really speak to patient engagement and the results in terms of health and well-being, obviously, that we're inspired to help them achieve. I think we're going to have to take a different approach. I think we need to continue within this, amazing bubble of people who are just so aligned on where we're going with patient engagement. We need to continue the good work that's been done, research, clinical practice, working with different aspects of the healthcare system to make sure that patient engagement is central. But I think that, and this is kind of what I've been talking to some of our National Health Council members and other partners, is we need to do differently, or I think we run the risk of just not being up front and center, but being at the margins of a lot of decisions that are being made. We talked about, the world is a challenging place right now. It probably always is. But, I'm looking at how can the patient community communicate differently to those decision makers that are making decisions every day, and it might be government, it might be the media, who are they covering and what are they saying? It might be about information and disinformation, that's a huge impediment for us. It could be about a lot of spheres of decision making that we just need to step up and I think present ourselves differently. We can't be passive. And I think about access to legislators, access to funders, access to all of those resources that are going to make decisions about the environment then that we look to move our agenda forward because we know that is for the greater good. And so I'm looking at just what are our communication strategies and how are we actually empowering our patient groups to more effectively engage their patients and have that compelling story somehow get on the front page of a social media message or a newspaper, be part of a congressional hearing or a hearing here in the EU that is focusing on these issues, et cetera, not be secondary to where those decisions are being made. And I think we just have to take charge. We have to do our own research. We have to create our own talking points. We've got to message differently in collaboration with our partners because collectively we tell the story that's in the best interest of patients. And so I think, it's about being strategic. It's about being aligned. It's also about being tactical. The big, bold vision I think we have in mind. But what are we specifically doing? So we're doing some things by just taking a look at some of the recently enacted legislation that really dramatically, in some ways, maybe challenges some of the programs that support patients in the U.S. Literally looking at a 700-page piece of legislation, finding every place in that legislation where it says the secretary shall, where there's an action point that Congress has put on the agency to take action, and then looking to see of those, how many really speak to the patient experience, and then have a strategy as to how we're going to be present at that table, at that point of decision making. And I think there are opportunities, for us to do that in many other places. We also might want to think about what's the risk, and I would suggest that it's worth looking at and taking perhaps about being disruptive. If we look at the existing system and feel like we've got to operate as we've always operated, I know in talking to some of you, that could mean that we're years away from incremental change. When we finally committed or convinced an agency, whomever, to really value patient engagement, I think we might want to think about something a little more disruptive. We know that for patients, it's nothing about us without us. Well, then how do we insert that into how decisions are made and how resources are allocated so that we are seen as a priority? And I think, there are sectors, and I'll be quiet, but there are sectors in the healthcare system that that definitely use a lot of the same language we use. That their values, their mission statements, the way they present themselves would think that they should be sitting in this room. But when you actually get down to the decisions that are made within that business model, is it respectful of the patient, and does the patient then actually have the services or the opportunity to advocate for themselves the way we would envision? And so I think those feel tactical in a way, and yet I think that's going to be the great leap forward if we can follow some of those tactics through. And I'm really excited to do that with POF, with PFMD, with all of you here in the room.
Well, does anyone want to follow that?
Not sure.
I mean, I would say that, you know, one thing that I think is really interesting is we spent a lot of time thinking about patient experience data, right? But we had a lot of really good discussions, like during the fusion session and following the fusion session, about patient engagement, and really the importance of patients not just being involved in the generation of data, but patients being involved in the creation of how that data is generated, and when that data is generated, and where that data is generated. And I think that all of those are really, really important concepts. And obviously, from a regulator standpoint, we're not necessarily at that early stage, but I think we all heard very clearly how important it is to have that important input at the very early stage, because, you know, at the end is at the end. It's hard to change course at that point, and so it's really that earlier input is always better. And I mean, continue throughout, though, like not just early, but throughout the process.
It's good. You want to? I'll share my perspective. Lode, I see your hand in the back. Hi, how are you? You waving? You have a question? You want to comment? You seem very eager. After me? Is it for Robin?
This is not a question and answer session.
That's right.
Yeah, here's my perspective. You know, I think what we take away, you know, from a sense of connectedness, I think what we've learned is that when we come together, we can elevate our voices in a really meaningful way. And today, this week, has really helped us identify the mutual outcomes, right, that we're striving for. Is that Star Trek? Are we? No, but I think aligning around those mutual outcomes, right, and collectively thinking about how our voices come together and how we want to be able to support that rise, right? The raising up of the importance of patient engagement, amplifying the voices in any means, in any way that we can, is absolutely essential. And I think at the core of this is understanding intent and having trust, right? And, you know that walking away, the intent, right, I think from an industry perspective, the intent should be clear of what we're striving to achieve. And that trust and the mutual collaboration and respect, I think we can achieve so much together. And I think if you reflect on the last year, right, we have been through COVID years. That's been more than a year.
Right.
But think about what happened in COVID when we all came together in that situation. Patient groups, industry, regulators, in thinking about how we needed to adapt our approach with trials and patients getting treatment. That's the time where you see the difference you can make. The crisis that we've experienced, many crises for people that we've had to experience, but certainly I can reflect that, you know, when the war in Ukraine broke out, we would not have been able to do what we wanted to do to support people and patients if it wasn't for the work and the collaboration and the trust that we have with patient groups. That's the kind of synergy that has to be built when we come together to achieve things. So all the incredible topics that we've talked about this week are just touching the surface, right? There's so much more that we can do. And so I'll leave it with this. And Tony, you said this in your comment today. we can do. Right? Just know that. In any situation, in anything we want to accomplish, we can do. Right? Two hands reaching out, extending a sense of trust and connected to each other. I believe there's anything, right, that we can do with the right purpose.
It's very, very hard to follow that.
I got really motivated. Sorry.
Not intimidated. No. So look, what I've learned is that what we need to go back and do, and every session actually, the coordinators came back with some ideas on how to make their project, their work a little better, how to improve it, how to change it so that they deliver something more meaningful later, right? So in a sense, we need to keep doing what we're doing, which is learning and improving upon every time we come together.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that I think we need to be doing is send you all on a missionary. I talked about converting, right, the agnostic to believers. Now let's go be missionary and preach to the non-converted, and because we actually can demonstrate the value of what we're doing, and I think we have a fantastic case of serving the public good, and so. I think we're there. We're there. We are participating. We show up, and now we go out there and we preach.
Right.
So
I love it. Start preaching.
Yeah, go out and preach, ministers. I mean, if we've gone to church right here.
well, in tech companies, you have
Right.
evangelists, right?
That's right. That's right.
That is true.
You know, and I would just build on, both Rebecca and Anka mentioned the greater good or the public good. You know, so much of our focus on patient engagement is really close to the healthcare community, the experience of patients, and of course it would be in all of our roles in trying to make that be as productive as possible. But patient engagement has value across many decisions that are being made in society, and I think we should promote the opportunity for patients to contribute on things like nutrition and health. There's an initiative, a global initiative on climate change and looking to reduce emissions. And there's real stepping up to the plate of business and industry and others saying, okay, here's how our industry will help bring emissions down and help the planet be a healthier place, which is good for patients. Well, there's a movement that's called Pathways to Patient Care as part of that effort, which actually has the health community looking at how they can be a part of climate change solutions. And so I had the opportunity to really look to see, well, so where are patients involved? Are patients at the table? Because there were conversations about, well, we can reduce emissions by moving more toward telehealth. We can reduce emissions by having people not travel so much, to their appointments and things that would change the way in which patients receive their care. And my question was, well, are patients at the table that to say that that's an acceptable change or a different change or what the trade-off is? And then also, if they are, our patient community will feel like they're empowered and part of the global climate change initiative, which is so critical. It's very reinforcing. And so I think we have the tools, we have the techniques, we know how to measure to make a difference that's very close to the patient in their experience of healthcare and broadly in their experience of society and what we're facing as a whole. And I think if we're present across all of those different places, they will be more credible as we look to see how those investments could be made in patients day to day.
Absolutely. I think that is a good, inspiring place to end. I mean, thank you so much for your perspectives. We have the tools, we have the resources, we have our marching orders. We know how to bring people together. We want to get more people in the room in order to move us to the next step. And so I think we definitely have a lot that we're all taking, that we're all going to be implementing, that we're all going to be acting on. I know that the PO Steering Committee has some thoughts, and so we'll invite Nicola to also give us his reflections. Actually, while he's coming up, we want to hear from you as well. So the QR code you see up is to ask you to kind of reflect or share three words, right, on the PO of convening, and then we'll show you the results after Nicola speaks. So please get involved.
Thank you, everyone. And so before I start, I just wanted to to start with the fact that my friend Mark at the back of the room, he really likes to tease me about the fact that I'm always on holidays. And so he loves it so much that he will say it every single time we speak. And like in a week like this one, I see him every day, several times a day, and he will tease me every time, and he will actually repeat it to every people we meet. And he really loves it. And why I'm saying that, it's because actually this week didn't really feel like working. And it was super intense, but it didn't feel like working. And we start to have questions today and earlier today about what's next for PF. And I was thinking like, but after 3 days of it, it seems not clear for everybody yet that actually you are doing the work. You are telling us where we go next. And like the panel here really gave us a fantastic direction, but that's you going back. And I heard Derek at the FMV session saying something around, oh, it was maybe his friend, but saying something around I cannot wait to come back to the country and use it. And so that's exactly, what are you doing with it? How do you lead back? And what can you bring back to us so we can make it better? And so it will be in Ireland, and then all the other countries will follow up. And so I just wanted to thank everybody because it's actually a privilege to have you here. So thank you for traveling. Thank you for your attitude in these sessions, and sometimes when the sessions are not perfect, still a fantastic attitude to continue. Thank you for all the side things too. So we have plenty. So we have the sessions, but a lot of things happen on the side, and a lot of things around friendship. I also saw some tough guys having some tears of pride in some discussions. I've seen, and that's for the gossip part of it, I've seen some love around the swimming pool yesterday after the PF on the rock. And you should have been there if you don't know what I'm talking about. So you have seen a lot of things, and thank you for that, because you are making this event very special. We also have amongst you, we have a few of you that are sponsoring the event, and that's actually an investment in the movement, an investment in the community, and it's really not the usual way it works in conferences. One of you even told me, please don't mention we sponsor. And so it's really, we had no discussion about the size of the logo, the poster, or anything like that, or speakers, and so it was really fantastic, and it's a very special way to contribute to the event, and very different from what we could expect from any conference, so thank you for the support there. I wanted to also ask the team, so the team from EPF, the team from UPATI, and the team from PFMD and the Synergies to stand up. So please all go up. So for Maria, Valentina, and I, we are really proud to be there and to have you with us, because it has been a huge amount of work. It has been mentioned a bit earlier, but actually designing a co-creation event is actually much more difficult what it looks like. And the number of questions we had, how we design session, will it work, will it not work? The time, how we organize the time, it's actually coming back to it. It's much easier to organize panel sessions and to put them like in a row and let people go to the coffee room when they want. So actually, thank you to the team, because the number of hours is really well beyond what we expected, and the attitude and the leadership has always been fantastic. So can you go back up? Stand again. And also for Jana, where is Jana? I don't know. Jana, just look there. Wave hands, please. So I also wanted to highlight Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, you can stand up now.
Yeah.
So no, stay up. Go, look at them. So Elizabeth is actually, she's not an event organizer. You have seen her at the head of PF, and actually she's doing much more than that. PF is only one of our activity, and actually bringing different organizations together to organize different teams together. It means communications team, IT teams, plenty of skills that she had to bring together from 3 different organizations, and she kept it all along, even when we had like big questions on the table or question marks that we were not sure how we would address it, and so she kept it all along. But it's just one of the projects she is leading, and actually she's doing much more than that. And also in the meantime, she's going through a lot personally. So I just wanted to, if you can make a standing ovation for Isabelle. Watching her, don't recruit her, watch her. So what's next? So you understood that you're gonna, I will not answer that question, we will not answer that question. We have started to hear some of you giving an opinion on that. But so what we can say is not what's next, but what is the ambitions. And so you have heard tsunami, it's not a wave anymore, it's not a movement, it's not a wave, it's a tsunami, or the next leap forward, and actually what we will be looking for. How can we extend that? And that's also a tough question we'll have to address. It's not easy, because already having a co-creation with over 100 people is a challenge, but when we'll be thousands, it will be even more difficult. So how do we do it? We don't know, but that will be very ambitious, because we really believe that that's the way, as it has been said many times during the 3 days, that's the way we will address the societal issue we are facing, beyond pure patient engagement aspects. So we will work on that. What I can say is that we see this even a little bit like the global gathering, with the champions. We also are thinking, and we have a first pilot in Japan in November, where we call that the PF Plus. So the idea is that how can we have like more local, and local geographically, but it could be maybe in a university, in a hospital at some point, but how can we have a kind of a franchise model, but not with a cost coming, just some rules and a format to respect. And so that's the type of ideas that we are exploring right now. We have a first test in a bit more than a month from now. So that's the type of activity we will do. So voila. So I will end here. And so please go back to everywhere and bring the leadership with the motivation we have managed to create here, and bring it back in your organization, in your countries, and everywhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I think there's one more group that I think deserves a round of applause, which is all of you. So can we applaud?
Absolutely.
Yes, because I think the energy that you brought, you know, the willingness to collaborate, to just be present, like Nicolas said, I think that really created the experience for all of us. So, okay, this is the feedback that you provided. How would you describe in-person PF? So some of the key things standing out: co-creation, huge, inspiring, collaborative, energizing, energy in a lot of ways, energetic as well, lots of connection as well. Yeah. So this is great. This is really great. Yeah. Okay. Well, so this is officially the end of PF 2022 in Barcelona, but it is not the end of the work that we're doing. Our key focus is continuity. How do we continue with the energy, the motivation, the goals and ideas that have been raised here? And so PF has a final session in virtual, unfortunately, in November, November 22nd and 23rd. So please do connect with that. Also, Synapse is a great way to continue the connections. And so I know I am guilty of not updating my profile, but I will update my profile. That's a good way, a good place to connect as well. So let's connect with that. Is there anything else that in terms of connection? Let's keep in touch. That's a good place to also end. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.